The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with silence. Dozens of alien leaders sat in curved seats made of shining crystal, each one watching the single figure who stood at the center. That figure was not one of them. He was human. He stood tall, his uniform torn from battle, but his eyes clear and steady. Captain Elias Ward had survived the impossible. His fleet had been outnumbered 5-1 at the Battle of Arkan Rift. Every council member believed the humans would be crushed. Yet somehow, against logic, against strategy, and against fate, Elias had led his forces to victory. The council feared humans. They were new to the galactic stage but already known for their willpower, creativity, and refusal to bow to stronger empires. The older races did not understand them. Some even whispered that humans had something dangerous inside their spirit, something that could never be controlled. And so, when it came time to honor the human captain, the council chose a reward that was meant to be a punishment. A chamber opened at the far end of the hall. 2 guards entered, dragging with them a figure in glowing chains. The alien leaders whispered among themselves, their eyes cold and amused. Elias did not move. He only watched as the figure was forced to her knees before him. It was a woman. Her skin was pale silver with faint lines of blue light running across it like rivers. Her long hair fell in waves, dark as midnight. Her eyes, sharp and bright, held no warmth. She did not speak, nor did she resist. She was bound by chains that pulsed with energy, a technology Elias had never seen before. "She is your reward, human," spoke a tall alien with skin like polished stone. His voice echoed across the hall. The last of her line. "A weapon created by the Ziyari. She is yours to command or to destroy. A fitting gift for your victory." The council chuckled among themselves. Elias looked at the woman. She lifted her head just slightly, and in her eyes he saw something the others did not notice. It was not hate, it was not rage, it was sorrow. "What is her name?" Elias asked, his voice calm. The alien leader blinked as though the question was strange. "She has no name. She is a blade, not a person." A murmur of agreement moved through the council chamber. To them, she was nothing more than a tool. She had been trained from birth to kill, her body altered, her mind shaped into obedience. The council expected Elias to see her as dangerous or worthless. They expected him to push her away, or worse, to end her life. Instead, Elias walked forward. His boots echoed on the crystal floor. The woman did not move. She seemed ready for pain, ready for more chains, ready for anything but what happened next. Gently, Elias knelt in front of her. He looked directly into her eyes, ignoring the whispers from the council above. "I don't need a weapon," he said softly, "but I'll take care of you." The woman's eyes widened just slightly, a crack in the mask she wore. She seemed unable to understand his words. The council, however, erupted in confusion. "Care for her?" one alien shouted. "He dares to keep it alive?" hissed another. "Foolish human, she will kill you in your sleep," cried a third. Elias ignored them all. He reached out and touched the glowing chains. The guards stepped forward, but Elias only raised his hand. "Release her," he said firmly. The guards hesitated. The council leader sneered. "If you wish to seal your fate, human, then so be it. Remove the chains." With a gesture, the guards unlocked the restraints. The glowing energy flickered and vanished. The woman was free for the first time in years. Her arms trembled as she lowered them, as if her body did not know what freedom was. She looked at Elias again, expecting orders, expecting cruelty, expecting to be treated as nothing more than the reward she had been called. But Elias only stood and offered her his hand. The hall was silent. The entire council leaned forward, waiting for her to strike him down, waiting for her to reveal the monster they claimed she was. Instead, the woman froze. Slowly, her hand moved toward his. She hesitated, then touched his palm. For a moment, her expression softened, though she quickly hid it again. Elias helped her stand. "You'll come with me," he said gently, "not as a weapon, not as property, but as my guest." The council burst into anger. Voices clashed, shouts echoed, threats filled the chamber. But Elias did not stay to listen. He guided the woman out of the hall, calm and steady, as if the storm behind him did not matter. When they reached his ship, the woman walked with slow, uncertain steps. She had no chains now, yet she seemed bound by invisible ones. Chains of fear, of memory, of pain. Elias led her through the corridors until they reached a small room. "This will be yours," he said, opening the door. Inside was a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into the endless stars. Nothing grand, but more than she had known in years. She did not move. She only stood in the doorway, staring at the bed as if it were a trap. "You can rest," Elias said softly. "No one will harm you here." The woman finally spoke, her voice low and quiet like a whisper of wind. "Why?" Elias turned. "Why what? Why not use me?" Her eyes held confusion. "That is what I am. That is what I was made to be. Why not command me? Why not fear me?" Elias studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled gently. "Because you're not a tool. You're a person, and you've had enough chains for a lifetime." The woman looked at him as if he were speaking a language she had never heard before. Her lips parted, but no words came. She turned slowly toward the bed and touched the blanket with her fingers, as though testing if it were real. For the first time, she sat down. Not because someone ordered her, not because chains forced her, but because she chose to. Elias watched quietly. He did not press her, did not question her, did not demand anything. He simply nodded once. "Rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk more." He left the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The woman sat in silence. For years she had been nothing more than a blade in the hands of others. Now, one human had undone that with a single act of kindness. Her eyes drifted to the stars, outside the window. Somewhere deep inside her a seed of hope stirred. She did not yet understand it. She did not yet trust it. But it was there. For the first time she wondered what it might mean to live, not as a weapon, not as property, but as herself. Far away in the council chamber, the alien leaders plotted. "The human is reckless," one said. "He thinks kindness will tame the blade," another sneered. "He will learn, and when he falls, the humans will fall with him." But the woman in the small room did not hear their words. She only knew that a door had opened where none existed before, and though she did not know it yet, that door would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The hum of the ship filled the quiet corridors. Captain Elias Ward walked steadily, his hands behind his back, his mind deep in thought. Only a few hours ago he had accepted a reward no human or alien would ever want. The Galactic Council thought they had trapped him by giving him a weapon disguised as a woman. But Elias knew what he saw in her eyes. Pain, not hatred. Her name. He still didn't know it. No one had spoken it, not even her. To the council, she had no identity. To Elias, that was the first thing that needed to change. In her new room, the woman sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands rested on her knees, her fingers trembling slightly as though she had never known what stillness was. The walls around her were strange. Smooth metal panels, soft lighting, and that large window showing the stars. It was not a cell. Not a training ground, not a battlefield. It felt wrong, almost like a dream. She tried to stay alert. She told herself this was a trick, that the human would soon come with orders, commands, or punishments. That was all she had known. But the bed was soft beneath her and the air smelled clean. Her tired body betrayed her. She leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes. For a moment she remembered. Her training as a child. The cold rooms. The voices drilling words into her head. "You are not a person. You are a blade. You obey. You kill. You are nothing else." She had accepted it then. What choice did she have? Every memory felt like a chain. And now this human, this captain, he had called her a person. He had told her she was free. Her heart beat faster at the thought. It scared her more than chains. ever had. The next morning, Elias returned to her room. He carried a tray with food, bread, fruit, and a small dish of warm broth. "You should eat," he said, setting the tray on the desk. The woman looked at him suspiciously. "What is this?" "Breakfast." She narrowed her eyes. "No nutrient. Paste? No injections?" Elias chuckled softly. "No, real food. Try it." Slowly, she approached the desk. Her fingers hovered over the bread as if it were a trap. Finally, she picked it up and took a small bite. Her eyes widened. Flavor. Real taste. Something warm and filling. She had never had such a thing. Elias watched her carefully. "Better than paste?" She glanced at him. For the first time, a hint of something softer appeared in her face. Not quite a smile, but close. "Yes. Good. From now on, you'll eat like this." The words struck her harder than any blow. From now on? He meant to keep her alive. He meant to let her stay. The thought unsettled her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. Elias leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "Because you deserve better." She shook her head. "I don't deserve anything. I was made to kill. I was made to serve. That is my only purpose." "No," Elias said firmly. "That's what they told you. That's what they forced on you. But you can choose something else now." The woman stared at him, her chest tightening. Choose? No one had ever given her that word before. Later that day, Elias brought her to the training deck of his ship. It was an open space with padded floors and holographic walls that could shift into different combat simulations. "I know what you are capable of," Elias said calmly. "You were trained to fight. But fighting doesn't have to be all you are." The woman stepped onto the floor, her body moving instinctively into a stance. She had been conditioned so deeply that her muscles reacted before her mind. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "If I do not fight, then what am I?" Elias thought for a moment. "You are whoever you want to be. Maybe a fighter, maybe a teacher, maybe a leader. You'll find out in time." She tilted her head, confusion clear on her face. His words were like puzzles. Strange, dangerous, yet they stirred something inside her. "Show me," Elias said. "Show me how they trained you." For the first time since she had boarded his ship, she obeyed, not out of chains, but out of curiosity. She moved into a sequence of strikes and counters, her speed blurring, her precision perfect. Every kick, every punch was flawless. She flowed like water, deadly and controlled. Elias watched in silence, impressed but saddened. She was extraordinary, but every move spoke of a life stolen. When she finished, she stood still, her breathing steady. She expected him to look at her with fear, as others always did. Instead, Elias simply nodded. "You're strong," he said. "But strength doesn't have to mean destruction. You can use it to protect, not just to kill." The woman lowered her gaze. "Protect?" The word felt foreign. "Yes. Protect yourself. Protect others. Not because someone orders you to, but because you decide it matters." Her chest tightened. Again. His words pulled at her like threads tugging on a tightly tied knot. She wanted to reject them, but they clung to her. That night, she lay awake in her bed, staring at the stars. She thought of Elias's voice, of the food he gave her, of the way he spoke to her like she was more than a weapon. And for the first time, she whispered a word to herself. Serenia. It was her true name. The one she had buried deep inside, the one the council had tried to erase. Speaking it felt dangerous, but also freeing. Serenia. She was more than a blade. The days passed. Elias treated her with the same respect. Every time. He never raised his voice, never gave her chains, never demanded her obedience. Instead, he asked questions. "What do you like? What do you dream of? What do you want?" At first, she had no answers. But slowly, piece by piece, she began to think about them. She liked the warmth of broth. She dreamed of standing in sunlight without fear. She wanted to know what it meant to laugh. She was still cautious, still guarded, but cracks began to form in the walls she had built around her heart. One afternoon, Elias found her sitting by the window watching the stars. "You look peaceful," he said. "I don't know the word," she admitted. "But when I look at the stars, I don't feel like a weapon. I feel small, but not in a bad way." Elias nodded. "That's peace. You're allowed to have it." Serenia turned toward him slowly. "Why do you care so much?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because someone has to, and because I know what it feels like to be treated as nothing more than a tool." Her eyes widened. "You?" He nodded. "Soldiers aren't so different. Orders, commands, missions. Sometimes people forget we're human too. I swore I wouldn't let anyone else feel that way if I could help it." Serenia looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, her lips curved slightly. Not fully, not quite. But it was the beginning of a smile. Far from the ship, the council raged. "The human treats her as a queen," one alien spat. "He is undoing years of control," another growled. "If she remembers who she is, if she learns freedom, the Ziyari will rise again." They began to plot. Plans of assassins, fleets, and secret orders spread like poison. They would not allow one human and one broken blade to undo their centuries of power. But aboard the quiet ship, Serenia sat by the stars, whispering her name again. Serenia. A name. A beginning. And for the first time in her life, she dared to imagine a future not written by others but by herself. The ship drifted silently through the deep void of space. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, bright against the dark sea. Captain Elias Ward stood in the command room, his hands resting on the edge of the control panel. His eyes were fixed on the star map, but his mind was elsewhere. It had been weeks since he had taken Serenia from the council chamber. Weeks since he had freed her from the chains they had placed around her body and soul. She was still quiet, still guarded, but Elias had noticed the changes. Small ones, but important. She no longer looked at food as though it were poison. She walked the corridors without flinching at every sound. And sometimes, just sometimes, he caught her gazing at the stars with something close to wonder. But Elias also knew the council would not stay silent forever. They did not give him Serenia as a true reward. They had wanted to punish him, to burden him. Now the very thing they tried to use as a trap might turn into something much greater. That, thought alone, would make them act. Serenia sat cross-legged in her room, her eyes closed, her breathing steady. She was not resting. Not quite. She was remembering. She could still hear the council's voices in her mind. "You are a blade. You are nothing else. You exist to obey." For so long, she had believed them. She had believed the whispers, the orders, the endless drills that stripped away her identity. But now Elias's words fought against them. "You're not a tool. You're a person. You can choose." Every day, those words echoed louder. Her fingers curled into fists. She wanted to believe them. She wanted to believe she was more than what they had made her. But what if it was only a dream? What if the human captain was wrong, and she was truly nothing but a weapon waiting to be used? The door slid open with a soft hiss. Elias stepped inside holding a small box. "Training session," he said with a smile. But not like before. Serenia tilted her head. "What kind of training?" He placed the box on the desk and opened it. Inside were 2 small wooden sticks, smooth and polished. "These are practice batons," he explained. "No blades, no pain. Just learning." Serenia picked one up carefully. It was light, harmless compared to the weapons she had known. She looked at Elias with confusion. "What's the point?" "The point," Elias said, lifting the other baton, "is not to fight me. It's to learn how to fight with someone." She blinked. "With?" "Yes, not as enemies. As partners." Her chest tightened at the word. Partner. No one had ever used it for her before. On the training deck, they stood facing each other. Elias moved slowly, showing her simple strikes and blocks. Serenia followed, her movements precise. She was faster, than him, stronger too, but she held back. She didn't want to hurt him. "You're holding back," Elias said. She frowned. You are weaker. He laughed. True. But strength isn't everything. It's about trust. About knowing the other person will be there to cover your blind spots. She lowered her baton slightly. Trust? Yes. Trust means you don't have to carry everything alone. The words struck her deeply. She had carried everything, alone her whole life. Pain, duty, fear. Could she really share it with someone else? Elias noticed her hesitation. He lowered his baton and stepped closer. I trust you, Serenia. Her eyes widened. He had spoken her name. The name she thought she had buried forever. How do you... You whispered it in your sleep. Elias said gently. I didn't want to force you to tell me. I waited. But I think you needed to hear it from someone else first. Serenia's chest felt heavy, yet light at the same time. Her name. Spoken not with command, not with scorn, but with respect. For a long moment she could not reply. Then finally she whispered, Thank you. But while Serenia was learning trust aboard the ship, the galaxy outside was stirring. Rumors spread like wildfire across the outer colonies. A human captain had taken the last of the Zayari weapons alive. Not only alive, but free. Whispers carried the story to hidden corners of space where the oppressed gathered. If she is free, we can be free too, some said. The humans do. Not fear her, others whispered. Perhaps the time has come. In shadowed rooms, rebels and fugitives spoke her name, Serenia. It became more than a name. It became a spark, and sparks, when fed, became flames. Back on the ship, Serenia walked with Elias through the main corridor. For the first time, she noticed the crew members staring at her not with fear, but with curiosity. Some even nodded politely. One young officer gave her a small smile. They do not hate me? Serenia asked softly. Elias shook his head. They trust me, and because I trust you, they will learn to do the same. Serenia frowned. I don't deserve it. Maybe not yet, Elias said honestly, but you will. Trust isn't given once, it's built, piece by piece. Her gaze dropped to the floor. Yet inside she felt something she had never known before. A tiny warmth, fragile but real. Hope. That night, Serenia stood by the window in her room, staring at the endless stars. She thought about the word Elias had given her, partner. She thought about trust, about peace, about her name. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future not written in chains. A future where she could walk freely, where her people could rise, where the council would no longer decide who lived and who died. The thought scared her, but it also gave her strength. She placed her hand on the glass, whispering to the stars, I am Serenia, and I will not be their weapon again. Far away, in a hidden chamber of the council, the white alien leaders met in secret. Their faces were grim. The human has undone years of control, one growled. She remembers her name, another hissed. If she becomes a symbol, the Zayari will rebel. The council cannot survive such a storm. They debated, their voices, sharp and cold. At last, the leader of the council slammed his hand against the table. Then we end it now. Send assassins. The woman dies, and the human with her. The others nodded. Plans were made. Ships were dispatched. The storm was coming. But aboard the quiet human vessel, Serenia sat in her room, unaware of the blades already pointed at her. Life. She closed her eyes, letting herself breathe deeply. For the first time in years, she whispered not an order, not a command, but a dream. I want to live. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, others whispered the same words, carried. By her name, a rebellion had begun. The stars outside the viewport looked calm, but Captain Elias Ward knew peace never lasted long. His instincts warned him that the council would not stay silent. He had seen their faces when he accepted Serenia as a reward. Their anger had been sharp, their fear hidden but real. They had planned for her to destroy him. Instead, he had freed her. That single act was enough to shake their control And when control slipped, the council always chose violence. Serenia trained daily, now but not as before. She no longer fought as a weapon obeying orders. She fought as someone discovering her own path. On the training deck, she sparred with Elias and his crew. At first, the crew had feared her speed and precision, but in time, they came to admire her. She moved with grace, not cruelty. She corrected mistakes with calm patience. She began to feel less like a shadow and more like one of them. One evening, Elias found her leaning against the railing, staring at the stars. "You've changed," he said quietly. Serenia tilted her head. "Changed?" "Yes. When I first met you, your eyes were filled with chains. Now, I see fire in them." Her lips pressed together. "A fire that the council will try to kill." "They'll try," Elias agreed. "But we won't let them." Serenia looked at him, her voice low. "We?" "Always we," Elias said firmly. The word warmed her more than she could admit. Days later, it happened. The alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed. The voice of the officer on watch cracked with urgency. "Captain," multiple signatures. "Incoming, council ships heavily armed." Elias rushed to the command deck. Serenia followed, her steps swift and steady. On the screen ahead, 3 sharp black council frigates dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons already glowing with energy. "They've come for me," Serenia said flatly. "They've come for both of us," Elias corrected. The frigates opened. Fire. Beams of plasma streaked across space. The ship shook as shields absorbed the first barrage. Sparks flew from a panel and officers scrambled to their stations. "Return fire," Elias ordered. The human ship's cannons roared back, spitting light into the void. 2 council frigates dodged gracefully, but one took a direct hit, its shields flaring bright. Serenia gripped the railing, her eyes burning. "They will not stop, they will send more." "Then we'll show them we're not afraid," Elias said. The battle raged. Serenia moved through the deck like a storm. She was not chained, not ordered. She chose to fight. She relayed commands, predicted enemy movements, and even rushed to repair stations when panels burst into flames. The crew began to follow her, voice without hesitation. One young officer gasped, "She saved my life." Word spread quickly across the ship. Serenia was no longer a weapon to fear. She was their protector. The council frigates regrouped, circling like wolves. Their leader broadcast a message, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Human captain, hand over the Zyari creature and we may spare your ship." Elias smirked at the screen. "You mean Serenia?" "No. You'll have to go through me, and through her." Serenia stepped beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly in the red emergency lights. She stared at the council leader with sharp, unwavering eyes. "I am not your weapon," she said coldly. "I am not your slave. I am free." The leader sneered. "Then you are nothing." Serenia's voice cut like a blade. "No. I am more than you ever allowed me to be. And soon, others will be too." Her words carried across the comms. Every rebel listening in secret channels, every enslaved fighter, in hidden colonies, every fugitive who caught the transmission, they heard her. And in that moment, a spark turned into a flame. The battle reached its peak. Elias's ship weaved between the frigates, striking hard, dodging fire. Serenia fought at his side, her instincts sharp, her movements precise. She was no longer a blade controlled by fear, she was a warrior guided by choice. One council frigate exploded in a burst of fire, scattering debris across the stars. The second retreated, its engines blazing. But the third held its ground, hammering Elias's ship with heavy fire. Shields dropped to 30%. The crew struggled to hold. Serenia closed her eyes for a brief second. She remembered the drills, the endless commands. But this time she gave herself her own order. "Open the forward launch bay," she said. Elias looked at her. "What are you planning?" "I know their ships," Serenia said. "I know where they are weak. Let me go." Elias hesitated. He had freed her because he wanted her to live, not throw herself into danger. But the fire in her eyes told him she was not asking as a weapon. She was choosing as a person. At last, he nodded. All right, but you're not going alone. I'll cover you. Serenia gave him a sharp look. For the first time, she felt the bond of trust not as a chain but as strength. The launch bay doors opened. Serenia leapt into the void in a sleek combat suit. Her body moved like lightning, enhanced by the augmentation she once cursed. She darted across space, weaving between blasts, while Elias's ship drew the frigate's fire. She reached the council vessel, slipping through a maintenance hatch she knew from her training. Inside, alarms blared as guards rushed to intercept her. But Serenia was no longer their tool. She was faster, stronger, and her purpose was her own. She struck hard, disarming soldiers, knocking them down, moving toward the engine core. Every step echoed with defiance. At last, she reached the core chamber. The glow of energy filled the room. She set a charge, her hands steady. "This is for every chain you placed on me," she whispered. The blast tore through the frigate's heart. Fire erupted, spreading through its corridors. Serenia launched herself back into space, racing toward Elias's ship as the enemy vessel broke apart behind her. The crew cheered as she landed in the bay. Elias met her with a steady gaze. "You did it." Serenia's eyes burned with fierce pride. "We did it." Word of the battle spread quickly. Not only had a human captain stood against the council, but the Ziyari woman they had once called a weapon had fought as a warrior of freedom. Her words, broadcast during the fight, reached countless ears across the galaxy. In the shadows, rebels began to rise. In the colonies, whispers grew into chants. The council's grip was slipping, and Serenia, once broken, once nameless, was becoming more than a survivor. She was becoming a symbol. That night, as the crew repaired the ship and celebrated their survival, Serenia sat quietly by the observation window. Elias joined her, holding 2 cups of warm broth. He handed one to her. "You've started something today," he said. Serenia nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to." "Sometimes the strongest sparks come by accident," Elias replied. She looked out at the stars, her voice soft but firm. "If I am a spark, then I will not fade. I will burn until others can see the light." Elias raised his cup. "To freedom." Serenia touched her cup to his. "To freedom." The fire had begun, and soon it would spread across the stars. Whispers that had once floated in hidden corners now became voices in the open. Ships that had hidden behind asteroids, rebels who had feared capture, and colonies that had bowed under alien rule, all heard the story of the human captain and the Ziyari woman who had defied the council. Serenia, once a weapon forged by fear and obedience, now moved through the galaxy as a symbol of hope. Every step she took was deliberate. Every word spoken carried meaning. She was no longer chained, no longer nameless, no longer the reward the council had given to a human captain as a trap. She was herself, Serenia, leader, protector, and queen of her own destiny. On board Elias's ship, the atmosphere buzzed with tension. The council was not idle. Reports came in daily of ships moving against them, fleets rising in rebellion, colonies breaking free. Their desperation was growing, and they had begun to send entire battalions to crush the uprising before it could spread further. Serenia stood at the observation deck, her hands resting on the railing. Her eyes traced the horizon of distant stars, thinking of those who looked to her as a leader now, those who hoped she could guide them. She had trained for battles of obedience, of killing on command, but now she was learning the hardest lesson of all, leadership without fear. Elias approached quietly, carrying a datapad. "The council is sending reinforcements," he said. "This is not going to be easy." Serenia nodded. "We do not fight because we must. We fight because they will not let others be free. And because we will not be controlled again." Elias studied her. She had changed completely from the frightened, cautious girl he had first met. Her voice held certainty, her movements held authority, and her eyes burned with resolve. She was not just strong, she was inspiring. "Then we prepare," he said. "We will show them what it means to fight for freedom, not for orders." The first strike came at dawn. Council frigates, appeared suddenly from hyperspace, their weapons charging with deadly energy. But this time, Sirencia did not flinch. She had learned to move not just with instinct, but with choice. Elias's ship led the formation, but Sirencia was at the front in a reinforced fighter craft, guiding small teams of rebels. She moved with precision, coordinating attacks, predicting the enemy's moves and protecting civilians wherever fleets had appeared near populated colonies. One pilot called out over comms, "Sirenia, we thought we were lost." Sirenia responded firmly but with calm reassurance. "Follow me. Stay together. Trust each other." It was a phrase she had heard from Elias many times, but now it flowed naturally from her lips. Not as an order from a master, but as guidance from a leader. The battle was chaotic. Explosions tore through space, ships spun in sudden maneuvers, and beams of plasma lit up the void like lightning. But the rebels held their line. They fought not out of fear, not out of obedience, but because they chose to fight for themselves and for each other. During the fight, Sirencia faced her first direct challenge. A council commander, notorious across the galaxy for his ruthlessness, had arrived to personally end her rise. His fighter craft was faster, stronger, and heavily armed. Sirencia felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. For a moment, memories of her training as a weapon flashed before her, the drills, the strikes, the cold lessons of obedience. But she pushed them aside. Those days belonged to the past. She had a new mission now: protect, guide, and inspire. The two ships weaved through the chaos, trading fire and dodging blasts. The council commander sneered over the comms. "You are a blade with no master. You are nothing." Sirencia's voice rang back, strong and steady. "I am more than you allowed me to be. I fight for freedom, not for you, not for orders, and I will not be stopped." With careful precision, she outmaneuvered him, using his own attacks against him. A well-placed blast disabled his engines, sending him spinning into the void. The remaining council ships hesitated, shocked that their most feared commander had been defeated by the very reward they had mocked. Back aboard Elias's ship, the crew cheered, not in fear, not in obedience, but in admiration. The Zayari, woman they had once feared, now led them, guided them, and protected them. She inspired courage where once there had been dread. Elias watched from the command deck, a faint smile on his lips. He knew the council would not give up easily, but he also knew that Sirencia was no longer their pawn. She had become her own force, a queen of her own destiny. He approached her quietly, standing behind her as she reviewed maps of fleets moving across the galaxy. "You've come so far," he said. She turned to him, her eyes calm but fierce. "I did not come alone," Elias nodded, "and you will not walk alone again." Together they began to plan the next move, not as master and servant, not as captain and prisoner, but as partners, allies, friends, equals. As news of her victories spread, more colonies and hidden rebel groups joined the fight. Ships once hiding in the shadows emerged, ready to follow the woman who had refused to be a weapon. Sirencia gave speeches over comms, not filled with rage or vengeance, but with hope and inspiration. "Freedom is not given," she said. "It is taken, it is earned, and it belongs to everyone." Her words spread faster than any fleet. People who had lived in fear for decades found courage in her voice. The council's control weakened with every battle, every act of defiance, and every colony that stood with her. The final confrontation came at the heart of the council's territory. Sirencia led a massive fleet, coordinating hundreds of ships, with Elias's vessel at the center. The council's forces, vast and well-armed, assumed victory. They had underestimated one human's compassion and one Zayari woman's choice. Sirencia addressed the fleet before the attack. "Today we fight not to kill, but to be free. Today we rise not as weapons, but as people. Follow me, and we will write our own destiny." The fleet roared in response. The fire of rebellion was alive. The battle was long and brutal. The council's forces were skilled, but Sirencia's leadership and the rebels' determination were unmatched. She moved through the chaos, coordinating attacks, saving ships on the brink of destruction, and guiding fighters who looked to her for hope. In the heart of the Council's capital, she faced the Council leader himself. Their eyes met across the battlefield. He sneered, confident in his power. "You are nothing, a human toy, a broken weapon." Serengia stepped forward, her voice steady, carrying across the capital and through comms to every ship and colony listening. "I am Serenia. I am free, and I am the choice I make." Her fleet pressed forward, overwhelming the Council's defenses. Systems failed, ships retreated, and the once feared Council fell to the people they had oppressed. After the victory, Serencia stood on the deck of Elias's ship, looking out at the liberated colonies. People cheered, waved flags of freedom, and welcomed the arrival of the woman who had been called a weapon. She was no longer that. She was a queen, not given power, but claimed by choice, courage, and compassion. Elias joined her. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," she corrected, looking at him and then at the sky. "All of us. Every voice that rose, every hand that reached for freedom. We are the reason this galaxy is free today." Elias smiled. "Then, what now?" Serentia turned toward him, her eyes bright with determination. "Now we help them rebuild. Now we teach them they are more than their chains. Now we show the galaxy that freedom is the right of everyone and no one can take it from us again." And so, the once broken blade, now fully herself, led the galaxy not with fear or power, but with hope, respect, and courage. She had been given the deadliest reward, but in the hands of a human who treated her like a queen, she had become a symbol, a leader, and a true force for change. The Council was defeated. The people were free. And Serentia, the Zayari who had known only chains, stood at the heart of the galaxy, a queen of her own destiny.